and who stay, so.
Okay, so we might have to put a spot number. Thanks. And can we say good morning?
Good morning.
I'm realizing one step we forgot about was actually just getting all of your names. So we're about to introduce ourselves and the children, but if you would be so kind as to introduce yourselves first, and then we'll start our presentation.
Hi everyone, I'm Shale Sorensky. I'm the president here at Bank Street.
Hi everybody, I'm Jen, you know me.
No, like I'm not one person.
Hi friends, my name is Akila, I'm a vice president here.
Hi, I'm Katie, I'm the chief of staff.
Hi, I'm Doug Connect, and I work with other schools.
I'm Justin Tyak, I'm the Chief Operating Officer.
I'm Josh Thomasis. I also do some work with other schools, and I work with our Head Start program and our Liberty Leagues group.
And I'm Cecilia Troll, and I'm the Dean of the Graduate School. So again, welcome. I'm Becky. I'm one of the 910 teachers, and I actually want to start by introducing and acknowledging Shaler. What you're seeing today would not have happened without the children's work, but also Shaler, who began this in October, right before we did have Columbus Day on the calendar. And she shared a video with the 910s about how Indigenous people in Seattle specifically have moved to change this holiday. That sparked the activism of the students, and Shaler has been leading the charge with them since then to figure out how can we make this change here at Bank Street.
And I'm going to introduce these people who have worked really hard over the past couple months researching and drafting a proposal. And something we started in our class yesterday was a strength of our community, and I just want to say that your strength is that you have the courage to be change agents, and I really admire that about all of you.
Another adult to introduce us to is Audrey.
Hi, I'm Audrey. I'm the student teacher, and I'm a student at the graduate school.
We also just want to let you know we have two students who are out today. Sasha, who will be hearing her voice. We recorded it yesterday. She's at a really important family event today. And then Chase, who you'll hear his lines and a special message that he emailed at the end.
We have decided that Columbus Day is not a holiday we should be celebrating. Columbus Day became a holiday because many people used to think that he discovered America. Although people believe, and some still believe, Columbus landed in America, that's not true. He really landed in the Caribbean. Also, Christopher Columbus enslaved, killed, and stole land from indigenous people, specifically the Taino people. Columbus and Columbus Day in general represents a history of slave trade and death of millions from river and severe illness.
Celebrating Columbus Day affects Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. The holiday shows that killing people is acceptable.
Indigenous people are an essential part of history in our world today. We are learning false history. Indigenous people deserve to be celebrated. Also, if you identify as white or Italian American and you are taught that Columbus discovered America, when you learn the truth, it can hurt. Our class read many articles as a part of our research, and we learned many things about the history of the holiday itself. Since 1792, Americans have recognized Columbus as a man. President Benjamin Harrison made the decision in 1892 the country to celebrate Discovery Day. On October 1st, 1934, President Franklin D. Roosevelt made Columbus Day a holiday that would appear on the calendar every year. Most of the people who originally celebrated the holiday were Italian Americans and Catholics. In 1938, people in New York City gathered to celebrate Columbus Day in Central Park. Over time, people changed their opinions of Columbus as linked to and saw him as a European Columbus. In the 1900s, people started to question what they really believed, and Indigenous people started to speak up. In many parts of the country, such as Boston, Denver, Philadelphia, and Berkeley, California, people started to protest. Today, many cities are fighting to make the change from Columbus Day to names like Indigenous Peoples Day. Bank Street is a progressive school, and we fight against so many things that are unjust. We don't think Columbus's actions demonstrated justice. We don't think Columbus deserves to have a holiday. One part of the Bank Street Credo says, flexibility when confronted with change and ability to relinquish patterns that no longer fit the present. In that statement, it says to be flexible about what you are learning. We are learning the truth about Columbus. Now that we've learned the truth, we don't use it anymore. Another statement in the Credo that doesn't match Columbus's actions is gentleness combined with justice in passing judgments on other human beings. Columbus's actions were not gentle to the Indigenous people. Thinking about Bank Street's Credo, we do not, I repeat, we do not feel the name Columbus Day matches what our school is all about.
Our class wants to change the name to Indigenous Peoples Day. Indigenous Peoples Day takes Columbus's name out of the holiday and gives the respect to Indigenous people. We think the name should be changed. However, we think Bank Street should still be closed in observance of Indigenous Peoples Day. The school was closed originally to observe Columbus. Right now, we should take the time to honor Indigenous people.
Many New York City and independent schools have already changed the name of this holiday, like Calhoun, Ideal, Brooklyn Friends School, LREI, Hewitt, Berkeley, Carroll, ECF.
These schools did not all use the same new name. Names include Fall Holiday, Indigenous Peoples Day, National Holiday, and Columbus Day / Indigenous Peoples Day. Some schools also had intermediate steps. For example, Berkeley Carroll first changed it to National Holiday and then to Indigenous Peoples Day.
This is a message that Chase emailed us this morning. My grandmother was born in the Dominican Republic, the first island Christopher Columbus landed on. The Taínos were the indigenous people of that island. This issue is important to me because I feel that Christopher Columbus Day is disrespectful to my grandmother and all the people that suffered. I want her to know that I care about her and where she comes from. And I know I come from the same place. Please consider changing Christopher Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day in honor of my abuela.
We still understand that this is a big day for Italian Americans. However, they do have their own month, Italian American month. I would also like to circle back to how this is not a new thing. Many schools and cities have already done this. In conclusion, we think that our school should change Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day.
Any questions for us?
First, I'd like to say it's really impressive how much research all of you did. You really covered a lot of the questions I had in your presentation, and it's very convincing. One thing I was wondering about is whether you've thought about discussing this with other students in the school, and if you have, what kinds of opinions they've shared with you.
We have not shared it with them yet, but that is a pretty good idea, and I think we will maybe. Also, I think when we did a little bit had ideas of names and if school should be open or not, we said that if this gets bad, that we would that we should vote with the whole school.
I think also we have just tried to make this as a class because we needed to do research and we needed to tell you guys first. And I think now if we can make it to a message to more than just our school and to all schools around everywhere, it would make a really big change. And I feel like if we can do that, we can change so many things in this world, and it would be really great for the future.
And last thing is, we don't necessarily share it with other classes, so as far as we are right now, but in the 8-9, at least when I was there, we do learn about Columbus Day there, and we read a book and everything, so I think that they get taught that, and I think that we don't necessarily tell them what we're doing, but they know that they're born.
Lucia, do you mean they get taught about
Yeah.
Indigenous people and the
Yeah.
false history of Columbus? Yeah, just to clarify. Any other questions for the 910s?
As you were researching this, did you learn anything that surprised you?
Well, one thing that, I think one thing that we've learned since we were taught the real truth about Columbus Day, maybe if we didn't exactly learn this year, but I think this is just like the main big surprise in all this, that usually you think that Columbus, we would learn that Columbus didn't find America and that he was given this holiday and they didn't even know it was America that he was.
I think we haven't heard from that, Haven?
Adding on to Chloe, one of the things that really surprised me the most was that he didn't actually land in North America. He landed in, which is what we got from our research, Bahamas, around there. And that was really interesting to me because I feel like everyone always believed he landed in North America and like found America and like all of North America, but he didn't really even land there.
Well, in the past, in my old school, I learned all of the false history, and before to rejoice my happiness about what fake happened, I had a book about the fake news that Columbus did, and once I learned about all this, I was really shocked about what Columbus did, and I sold the book.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that? Why do you think there is this problem with the history not being taught correctly and the truth being hidden?
Well, I think that some people who originate from the Tainos need to know what actually happened to their ancestors so they can protest. And I also think that people who are the same race as Columbus, when they learn the truth, it may go very deep, so they end up protesting too.
But going back to your question, another thing that really surprised me is that kids grow up learning that Columbus found America, and I don't think that that's really right to say, and I think that this study we're starting with the school, and then I know that we want to change it to telling everybody that, well, even though that they respect Columbus, and I totally get that, but that to know the truth and to teach kids the actual truth, I think that's the best way to grow up into it.
Jen, did you have another question?
Yeah, I was going to ask, so you all are talking a lot about the school, and I'm wondering if your proposal extends to the college. In other words, on that day in the fall, the whole institution is closed, correct? So there's no graduate school classes. We have a couple of graduate students here. We've got the dean. I'm wondering, are you proposing that what you're suggesting not only applies to the school for children, but also the college as a whole? Maybe somebody hasn't.
Any new voices of people who wanted to answer questions?
Maybe we could, because that really doesn't we're not really decide that yet. I could just say right now I kind of want it. I think we're not just trying to make this change for the school, we're trying to make it for the whole world. People in where Columbus was born, I don't quite remember where, but people are learning false history there too. And I think this is a problem worldwide that this one classroom is trying to fix. And we can't do it alone. I feel like if we could have the whole school helping on this case, we could make it worldwide. We could do this and we could make change through this world, we could learn the truth and it could finally be a problem that is resolved. But if we keep it to one school, let me ask you, will it change or will it just stay in this world as Columbus was the founder?
Can I ask one more thing? So in terms of, do you know, have you been learning about anything else that's going on in the world related to the treatment of Indigenous people? And do you see that there's hope here that that there might be movement beyond what you've written?
Hayden and Steve.
Well, yeah, besides learning about Indigenous people and Columbus Day, we've also learned about hunger and people who don't have enough food and need food, and we're trying to help that cause too. And
About Indigenous people, it's not just a bad thing. Indigenous people have also been taught the truth, and people that aren't Indigenous as well. And there have been protests, and there have been strikes or actions against it as well. Like we said in our proposal, this is not a new thing. Other schools are taking it, other cities are taking it. So it's not just a bad thing, it's also being fixed.
What other action have we taken for representation? Think back to our Red Apples letter that we sent before break. Chloe?
Well, should I just tell the story of what happened? So we got an email from Chef Corey, and it was a picture of an apple box, and forgetting what the brand was called, but
Red Chief.
But the picture, the logo, was a huge stereotype to Indigenous people because it was somebody who was a person of color, and they were wearing feathers in their hair, and their skin was a reddish color, and we just thought that was a huge stereotype.
And Sabine, what did we do about that? Or what else were you going to say about it?
I think their skin was exactly the same color as an apple shade. And it was almost like they're trying to tell you that they're using a stereotype. It was just so obvious.
And so, Lucy, what action did we take?
So we sent a letter to the Apple Farm,
The company?
the Apple company, and we sent what they were basically the problem, and I think they haven't responded,
Any more questions?
Well, I have a question about the Italian nature of this holiday. And you began to answer my question. But recently there was, we have Columbus Circle, Columbus subway stop, and that big statue. And recently it was decided to keep that statue for a variety of reasons. Do you folks think about that at all?
That was not part of our discussion. But what did come up, as Ava was mentioning, is really thinking about what cities are doing. And at the beginning of this, we actually talked about how there are people in city government, Charles Barron specifically, who are trying to get this off the city calendar and make changes. And we said, we have two pathways. We can try to change Bank Street first, or New York City first. We chose Bank Street first. As Ava is saying, though, then using that for sort of more reason to move forward in a bigger way.
And we have had a lot of discussions about race and how Italians came to America and assimilate into Italian Americans who are recognized as white, and how Christopher Columbus is a part of what makes that so important for them. So we have had those discussions, but still feel like there's a need for change.
going back to the Red our chief thing. So basically there are still Indigenous people out there in the world today. There's still a lot of people, and you want to, well, some people might think, well, they're the people with the feathers in their hair and stuff, but I actually have a little bit of Indigenous in me, and I don't, like, some people still do wear feathers in their hair. I'm not saying that nobody does, but I'm saying that it's not the right thing to think that Indigenous people and Native Americans wear feathers and dress differently than today, than other people. So that's also a part of this. And
I think we're going to pause on these comments and see if there are any final questions or not from Kevin.
I'll be curious to know what happens once you take over Bank Street. And how you get into the wall with it. I'll be curious to see what you do.
it's more of a matter of the help that we get and the people that we can reach out to. At the start of the year, we sent a few letters to the senator, I feel like. Is that right? Last year we sent letters to the senator about, I feel like it was like discrimination between people or something.
Our letters to about the president.
Yeah, about the president. Yeah, so I feel if we can have help from all of you guys, if we can have like people reaching out from our school to the world, if we can have maybe like at basketball games, people could be like, you know, this is happening, can you help us? If we could have schools worldwide doing this action, we could change the world. But I feel like the biggest barrier is trying to get to Italy or some place like that. Because Europe, because there's a lot of space between America and Europe. So I feel like we would need a lot of help to get there, to get all the way to where we're trying to accomplish. And I feel like a big part of what's happening today, of all of this statue stuff, all of this is because we were taught to believe lies. And if we are still taught to believe lies, this is going to be happening. All this fighting, all this discrimination is going to happen. And we're not going to make it stop. So if we can make this stop, if we can make our world have a little bit more peace, we could change it and we could have people learning the truth. We could have all people standing together. We could have everybody everywhere doing whatever they want. And we could really just have peace for once.
I think that's our closing. Oh, Chanty
I
has
was
something there.
suggesting, so what we can do with that, we could throw in the whole people.
So what we're going to do is we're going to meet together after reading what you wrote to us and listening to today, and then we're going to come back and give you our thoughts and what the next steps would be. So we'll be in touch again within a week or so to give you a response to the proposal. One thing I'd like you to think about while you're waiting for that response is, if we were to say yes, could you start to think about a plan that teaches other classes in the school about what we've learned? How would you do that? You don't have to answer right now, but think about it while you're waiting for us to respond to your proposal. Okay?
Thank you for coming.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Good job.
Good work.